Could we ask you to take your seats, please? Wow, I don't get that kind of action out of my children. Thank you. My name is Tom McDonald. I'm an assistant dean here in the Woodbury School of Business. We welcome you to the Reed and Christine Halladay Executive Lecture Series in the Woodbury School of Business. We are thrilled with today's guest, former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, the 54th Speaker of the House. We are grateful for students, faculty, staff, and community members who are here with us today. Additionally, we are privileged to have the Honorable 17th Governor of the state of Utah, Gary Herbert, joined by the former First Lady, Jeanette Herbert. And I confirmed earlier that I'm one of the few people who have voted for them, and they have also voted for me in Orem City politics. Thank you to the Herberts. We welcome the members of the UVU Board of Trustees, Utah State President Stuart Adams, along with House and Senate leadership, many other notable dignitaries worth mentioning, but time will not allow. We bring incredible speakers to UVU, and mentioning them by time will not allow. We have amazing donors and sponsors, including the Reed and Christine Halladay, and today's lecture speaker, Mr. Scott Anderson, President of Zions Bank. We thank them for their support of UVU, the Woodbury School of Business, and the Herbert Institute. Please give them a round of applause. I would like to now introduce Governor Gary Herbert, who will give a personal introduction of our speaker today. Gary Herbert served as the 17th governor of Utah from 2009 to 2021, and he's anxious to get up here. I've got a few points on you, Governor. He followed by 30-plus years as an elected official in the state and local level. Gary Herbert has returned to UVU from his days as faculty member in the Woodbury School of Business to create the Gary R. Herbert Institute of Public Policy. The Institute works to develop future policy leaders, lost my place, gather the community and build trust in the instructions that have made our community and nation great. Herbert and his wife, Jeanette, are the proud parents of 6 children and 17 grandchildren. Is that still accurate? Good. Please join me in welcoming Utah's 17th Governor, Gary Herbert, to the stand.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate the introduction and for your brevity. So thank you. And Tom is a member of our Orem City Council, as you know, and the Associate Dean of Business here at UVU. And I want to add my welcome to all of you for being here today. This is really kind of an important day for us and for a lot of reasons. So thank you for being here. We appreciate also Scott Anderson. I should recognize Scott Anderson of Zions Bank, who's the sponsor of this event here. And, you know, government can't do it all. It's good to have the private sector step up and help us get some things done. So thank you all for participating. Let me be brief. We could spend an hour talking about Paul Ryan and his resume, but I met Paul when I was governor, and he was in the Congress and became the Speaker of the House and became a good friend. He remembers names and places and people. He's got a very good, what I call get it factor. He gets it and has wisdom beyond his years. He was elected to Congress when he was 28, young, just a kid, and served 20 years with distinction in the last 4 years as the Speaker of the House, the 54th Speaker of our great Congress in the United States of America. He's kept busy since he's left politics. He's on a number of boards, private and some not-for-profit, to help people that have challenged with poverty, getting an economically foundation basis for having jobs and opportunity. Living the American dream, he's doing that. He's with another company called Solomir, a venture capital company that's doing some really good things. I know he has probably a unique perspective as far as what has happened here in our country in the last number of years. He's been inside the ropes and been outside and an observer. A lot of us got to know Paul when he was selected by Mitt Romney to be the vice presidential candidate, and did a great job in complimenting Mitt Romney in that effort. Came close, but not quite enough to become the president and the vice president. But his impact remains on and certainly relevant today for what he's done, the policies he's created. Maybe some today we'll have an opportunity to talk about his tax policy that he put in place to help reform and grow the economy. He's a Milt Friedman economist fan, and really understands the free market and the desire to have entrepreneurial spirit and culture that we have here in Utah, in fact. So without further ado, welcome my friend and your friend, and one of the great legislators we've had, the former 54th Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Paul Ryan.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's great. Thank you very much, Governor. Is this thing on? All right. Thank you very much, Gary. I'd rather just do a walk and talk. First of all, let me just say it's really cool to be here in the Scott and Karen Keller building. I'm in that building, right? Yeah, they're dear friends, so it's just neat. I need to take a selfie out front and send it to them after this. I want to start with just a handful of open remarks, and then how many other students here, right? Okay, so I'm going to ignore the people in the front row, and then we'll talk. But I wanted to start with some open remarks, and then let's just have a conversation. First, I guess news of the day, people are interested, I guess we'll talk about this later, but Speaker of the House is a fun and easy job. I recommend it to everybody. So, those of you who are political science majors, go for it. But in all seriousness, you're coming of age in a really interesting time. You're getting an education here at UVU, and you're coming into society with really good opportunities, but also some pretty big challenges that unfortunately our generation is handing on to you. And so I want to walk through just a couple of those. As you can tell, I dress like a recovering politician now, which is, my life is much more relaxed and casual, but I do still lose sleep at night thinking about some problems we have in this country. And if I had to put it in a nutshell, I'd say that this country, the first democracy in the world, this is the country and the only nation that was ever built on an idea. And this beautiful idea, which we refer to it as natural rights or natural law, that the condition of your birth doesn't determine the outcome of your life. That no matter where you come from and who you are, you have freedom and self-determination and liberty, and you can go build a life for yourself. This wonderful idea where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which created this system of government we have, unprecedented in humankind, is the one that gives you all this opportunity that you have in front of you. It's a really amazing thing. But this is the first country to ever do this. So it's not as if history is kind to self-determining democracies. And so we are experiencing some stress tests right now. And I would say that our system of government, our country, is experiencing basically two stress tests, one from within and one from without. From within, we are a self-determining country. We're a democracy. We decide how we govern ourselves. And if you're looking at the TV today, it doesn't look like we're governing ourselves really well. And I'd say at the root of this is the fact that we have this hyperpolarization that is alive and well in America. We're tearing each other apart. We are going online and spending our time and our days in our own little cul-de-sac, where the algorithms are giving us our biases back to us, where the cable streamer we're on, the news feed we get, the friend group we have, the social media influencers we look at, these are all feeding us our biases, and they're telling us the other people who aren't like us or don't look like us or don't think like us are bad people. And so we have this tribalization that is being accelerated with all this digitization. We have this tribalization that is monetizing. So if you take a look at a lot of the money that can be made on the internet, it is not on making us happier. It is not on making us more pluralistic and tolerant. It is not on making us sort of work together and build up civil society. It is on the darker emotions. They're monetizing the emotions that divide us. And so the challenge and question for this stress test on all the democracies, not just America, from within is, can we, and especially your generation, you're really the first generation to come of age in this digital age. I was born in 1970. I mean, when I first got elected to Congress in 1998, the internet really wasn't like a thing. I mean, there was, email was internal. So you're coming of age in this day and age. The question is, can we get through this really tough, polarizing moment that all of democracies, particularly ours, is facing? And frankly, a lot of it's going to be up to your generation. So that's what's stressing democracies, is it's making it difficult for us to tackle our challenges and lead ourselves out of the problems we have to fix our problems, to solve society's issues. The other problem is we're being challenged from without. You know, after the fall of the Soviet Union, a lot of people kind of concluded it's over. The debate's over. Democracy wins. Democracy and capitalism, that's the way to organize society. That works the best. That does the most good for the most people possibly of any kind of system of government. But you've had the rise of totalitarian states, of authoritarian regimes. China and Russia come to mind, using this kind of technology to further their advances. So you have a systems debate right now. The totalitarian systems, particularly of China, using the kind of technology that is available today, they're basically saying, we are better than democracy. We are faster and meaner and nimbler and we can move better and do more than democracy. You know, forget about liberty and freedom and privacy, but the rest of it we're really good at. And so we are being stress tested from within. Can we self-govern? Can we come together on common principles and common ideals and fix our problems and grow our futures? And we're being stress tested by these totalitarian, techno tyrannies that are basically saying we're better than democracy, we're going to beat democracy. And this is in a nutshell the frame of the challenge of the 21st century. Now let's look at the actual challenges within us. The one that I spent most of my career on is fiscal policy. Before I was speaker, I chaired the committee called Ways and Means, and before that I chaired the budget committee. Long story short, your generation is getting sent a massive amount of debt. And the shame of all of it is the prior generations have racked up this debt, and it's sending it on to you. And if this is not solved, it is just a mathematical certainty that it's giving our country a less prosperous, more diminished future. So the challenge for us, this is an internal challenge, and this is most first world democracies are experiencing this. We've got to find a way to get this debt under control so that your future is as free and prosperous as ours was. And there's this old idea that can be a new idea in America. I mentioned before, the condition of your birth doesn't determine the outcome of your life. That's why you're here at UVU, to make a better life. But we used to always believe in this country, your kids are going to be better off than you are. The next generation is always made better. And there are a lot of folks these days that don't see that in front of them. There are a lot of people who are thinking that may not be true. I mean, the beautiful thing about our country is we have all these amazing immigrants that came here for a more free or prosperous future, and they had a great life, and they made an even better one for their kids. So the question is, can we revive that legacy of America, this system of upward mobility and self-determination? I think the answer is yes, because what we need to do to solve this debt crisis, what we need to do to honor the promises that have been made, to have this social contract that I would argue in the 20th century we more or less came to consensus on as a country. I'm a conservative Republican, but Democrats, Republicans, we all basically agree in what we have built over the years as being the social contract. We disagree on details and policies within, but what I mean when I say the social contract is we want a safety net for the poor. We want a safety net to catch people who are slipping through the cracks, to get them back on their feet, to go have and build a nice life. And we want to have things like health and retirement security for Americans. These are critical needs that you have to have a good and safe and prosperous life. And so that social contract of a safety net and health and retirement security are basically programs that were built and written in the 20th century in ways that are proving fiscally unsustainable in the 21st century. And the good news is these programs, which were really designed literally in the 1930s and the 1960s, we've learned a whole lot more about these things, health and retirement security, how a good safety net works, but we haven't reformed those programs. So the things we've learned in this 21st century, if we can apply these lessons, apply those founding principles to these programs and these problems, my argument is, and we've put it all out there on paper, if you want to go to AEI, I'm a think tank guy now too, we put a big book out on this, and there's a lot of other people with good ideas that can do the same thing. My point is, we can take these policies that we wrote in the 20th century, that we now have consensus, we want these missions achieved in America, a safety net, we want health and retirement security, Those programs are the drivers of this debt crisis that's coming in front of us. We can reform these programs, and we can fulfill these missions, and we can do it in a way that doesn't drive your generation deep, deep, deep into debt. So the point I'm trying to make is our problems in America, that are these economic and fiscal problems, are completely solvable. They're within our own means to solve. The question is, can we get serious enough politics to do it? And right now, we have fundamentally unserious politics. We do not have political leaders doing the right thing to get these things under control so that you are guaranteed this legacy of having a better future for the next generation. And one of the reasons why that is happening is because of this internal problem we have, all this polarization. And so the last thing I want to basically say to you is, and I came of age, again, I feel fortunate, frankly, to come of age and to come into Congress, before the internet was really a big thing, because it was more person-to-person communication. It was more building relationships. It wasn't hits and clicks and owning the liberals and all this polarization stuff. So the question is, can we build a civil society? Can we build a community where each and every one of us has 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we use it in that proportion? We listen to other people who do not think like us or look like us or come from where we come from, and do we treat them with mutual respect? Do we make our arguments based in fact and reason and principle, or is it just full of emotions and just castigating people? That's the question. And right now, I hate to say it, but like a lot of our politicians aren't doing that. So the last thing I'd say is we have a new wing of the Democrat and the Republican Party. It's called the entertainment wing. We've got folks going to office that are there to entertain, there to provoke, there to build the brand, to get hits and clicks, and not to make compromises, not to collaborate, not to come together and solve problems for their constituents and our fellow Americans. And if you actually go to any state legislature, to Congress, you will see wonderful men and women in both parties sincerely trying to do the best for their constituents, trying to make a difference, there for the right reasons. But right now, the loudest voices in the room, the loudest voices on air, on your phone, are these entertainers. So the question is, can we as voters make sure that we're not sending entertaining provocateurs to Congress, to our state legislatures, but people who get stuff done. People who share our principles, share our values, have good thoughts and creative ideas about solving policy problems, but at the end of the day, know how to work and collaborate with other people to get things done. And so that's just a few things I wanted to say, especially to the young people. The point of all of this is, our country always gets it right, we just do it a little late. Winston Churchill, I think, said it best: the Americans can be counted upon to do the right thing, but only after they've exhausted all the other possibilities. He also said, democracy is the worst possible form of government, except for all the other forms of government. The point being is, we live in the greatest country in earth, built upon this most beautiful idea that is inclusive and aspirational, that is self-determining and free. And it really is up to us as to whether or not we can weather these challenges, which is really in our own minds, in our own thumbs, in our own clicks and hits. Can we get through these challenges? Because these policy challenges confronting our country, the challenge from China, the debt crisis, all of those things, totally within our own power to solve and fix. And that is why I'm actually eternally optimistic that we're going to get this stuff done. But it's just something that you are going into, this amazing explosion of technology and opportunity into the world today, where you have a lot of cool stuff in front of you, but you've inherited some pretty big challenges that we together have to get over. So with that, I just want to say thank you for having me here at UVU. Really appreciate it. I'd love to open it up and just answer some questions.
We're going to have lines here for questions. If you'd like to come, someone will hold the mic and let you do it, but the first one will go to our governor.
Paul, again, we thank you for being here with us today, and thanks for your service. 20 years of challenging times. So you've been there, done that. The question I think most everybody would like to hear you address, and you've touched on a little bit, as you reflect on what happened 2 days ago, and the Congress and the Speaker for the first time in history being voted out of office after 9 months. What's your thoughts about that, and what recommendations would you give to our Congress, both sides of the aisle, to get things done in an appropriate way for the benefit of the people of America?
Yeah, Gary, thank you for that. By the way, thank you for the invitation to be here. I usually come here in the winter to ski, so it's actually beautiful outside right now. I think what happened in Congress the other day was a total disgrace. It was 4% of the Republican conference, led by an unprincipled demagogue, overthrowing our Congress, bringing it to a screeching halt, and removing a speaker for simply doing his job. I think that was absolutely disgraceful. He didn't deserve it. And it is a testament of what I was just talking about, which is you've got these people who go to Congress to build a brand and to entertain, not to govern. And that is not going to help our country. That's going to set our country backwards. Going forward, the people running for speaker are very good friends of mine, but my advice to them is fix this motion to vacate. You cannot have, the problem with these tactics is today's extreme tactic is tomorrow's normal behavior. It's a one-way ratchet with people like this. So if a speaker gets elected next week without this motion to vacate being fixed, that person's going to have the same gun to their head in weeks. So you've got, the conference has to fix this motion to vacate and alter that so you can't have these people hijacking democracy for their own ridiculous demagogic goals and ends. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, look, when you're Speaker of the House, you say no more than you say yes to members. Every day you're besieged with requests from the members, many of them mutually exclusive. So if there aren't about a dozen people angry at you in any given day in Congress, you're not doing your job. You have to say no a lot because there are things you just cannot commit to. And so you have to fix this, because if you have people who think it's my way or the highway, I'm not going to collaborate, I'm going to build a brand, this is going to happen again. The other point I would make is the appropriations process is broken, does need to be fixed. But what you have here is cognitive dissonance. And I experience this a lot, running the legislature, is what people ask the speaker to do is they want an outcome. I want, this much money spent and this much appropriations and done this way. I want this outcome. Will you deliver this outcome? But if you're Speaker of the House, you can control one thing, maybe, the House. You don't control what the Senate does, particularly if it's in the other party, which it is, and you don't control what the president does, especially if it's in the other party. So what members ask of speakers often is an outcome, and what a speaker says is, I can guarantee you an effort. And so the cognitive dissonance that typically happens with members interacting with their leadership is, a leader will say, I will commit to an effort to try and get this goal achieved. And what people want to hear, what they think they hear is, he just committed to get this outcome for me. And when that outcome doesn't occur, he's a liar. That's the kind of stuff that happens. So what I learned early in the job is at the end of every one of these conversations, I said, wait, let's just be clear what we just decided, what we agreed on. We agreed on this, that this effort I will commit to this effort, but I cannot guarantee the outcome. So you can hold me accountable for trying to make this effort, but you cannot hold me accountable for what Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden does. That's the impasse that happens. That's the cognitive dissonance that happens. And I think there's a lot of that happening right now in Congress. And so whoever gets this job, and I don't know if it's Steve or Jim or some other person gets in this race, they should not take this job unless the conference fixes this motion to vacate. And they should make sure that you set expectations accordingly. And that means members of Congress have an obligation to tell their constituents the truth. Do not overpromise what you cannot deliver. Don't tell your constituents, I'm going to do this, when there are other people in this democracy who have an equal say in government, and we have divided government. So it's important that you don't, lie to your constituents or use rhetoric that is so far beyond what is achievable, because you're just going to dispirit people. You're just going to get people cynical because they thought you were going to deliver some outcome when you can't commit to doing that. So that's basically my thoughts on this. It's a disgrace. They need to fix this thing so that they can move on and hopefully put this back together. Yeah, anybody have any questions? Or do you have to? Or, you want them in the aisle, or there's people raising their hands? Oh, do you mind coming in the? You got to go down here, I guess. He's got his laptop open and all that stuff. He's.
Why don't you ask it first, and I'll bring the mic.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Parker Miller.
Tell me your name and where you're from.
I'm from Georgia, so a long ways away. In 2018, you said you left politics because of the identity politics, and it wasn't true. And you talked about in today's Congress, there's hyperpolarization. What can we all do on an individualistic level to overcome these challenges in this next generation as we face these problems that we're faced with?
Yeah, I mean, that's not why I left. I left because I had 3 kids in high school I saw only on Sundays. But identity politics is a scourge. You know what I mean? You know what he means when he says identity politics? This used to be like a Saul Lewinsky left-wing thing, which was practiced on the left. Now the right's doing it. And identity politics is a politics designed to identify people in certain groups and divide them against one another. So that if you divide the electorate in ways that speak to the divisions and how they're different from others, and you can divide your electorate so that you can win 50 plus 1%, you win. It is extremely divisive politics. So I think it's immoral politics. And the problem is we have identity politics being played on the left and the right now. So to me, we have to find a way to reward politicians that don't do that. I'm an old Ronald Reagan guy. We have to find a way to reward politicians who are inclusive and aspirational and focus on bringing people together. My mentor was a guy named Jack Kemp, which I think only the people in the front row would probably know who Jack was, who hated identity politics. So the quick answer to your question is, how do you get over identity politics? Don't support politicians who are peddling identity politics, and don't play into it. Don't play into it, especially through your digital life, by antagonizing differences between people. Spend your digital life working on trying to bring people together. By the way, put the darn phone down and just go out in the community and just be with people, do things, build civil society. I mean, the LDS community is spectacular in this. I think that's one of the reasons, because your community is so good at building civil society, at bringing people together, why this is the #1 place in upward mobility in America, because of this wonderful culture you've built and developed here. So do more of that. Proselytize that. Proselytize getting rid of identity politics, the separateness of ourselves, and where we can find and build our common humanity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, so you talked
Name
about...
and where you're from.
Sorry, yeah. I'm Daniel Hodson. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cool. I'm just trying to see if somebody's from Wisconsin, that's all.
Luckily, no.
Yeah. Oh, jeez, man. The heck?
You talked a lot...
Yeah, that's identity politics right there. That's identity politics right there.
So you discussed a lot about the increasing division in our country, and a lot of that being caused by digitalization. In the system we have in place, I think a lot of the time suppliers are incentivized to give consumers what they want rather than what they need. And I think that on social media, that means these private social media platforms are incentivized to tell us what we want to hear and what we already agree with, rather than new ideas and new points of view. So my question is, how it sort of goes along with what that gentleman over there asked. On a systematic level, though, how can we eliminate those echo chambers when these platforms are privatized and therefore incentivized to just fill our ears with what we want to hear?
There's no good answer to that question. Because A, we have a First Amendment. B, the last thing I want to do is put the government in charge of this. I mean, could you imagine that? So that would be a disaster in my opinion. So C, the question is, can these companies help self-regulate themselves to reduce this hyperpolarization. But you can't pass a law to do this. I don't think you should, at least. I know some think you can, because I don't want to give the government that kind of power over our First Amendment rights. So the question, I think, really comes down to, and look at the incentive structures. Your legacy media was getting their lunch handed to them by these hyperscale tech firms. So the advertising dollars that sustained legacy media, TV and newspapers, they were basically dying, and they had to compete for hits and clicks. And so the sensationalization sort of got going, and the hyperscales, Google, Facebook, and the rest, or Meta now, monetize this stuff. The algorithms feed you what you want and how you're different. I don't think this is something government can do, but I think more transparency of their algorithms, more transparency of why and what they do, and public pressure on them, and stop the demand. I mean, there's a supply and demand here. They're supplying what is being demanded. It'd be nice if we stopped demanding some of this stuff so that there's no less supply. But I think you have public pressure, private sector methods to try and prevent the supply of all this polarization. But if you ask government to get involved and do this, I think you're going to be careful. You're not going to like what you get at the end of the day. It's really not a good answer to that question. I wish I had a better one.
Do I hold it? Okay. Hey, my name's Jason Bruger. I'm originally from Utah, and I'm a student here at UVU. I have a quick question. So much of politics is integrated into the economy. I mean, the Dow hit a negative just yesterday because of Speaker McCarthy's ousting. But my question is that how do we separate the governments and their dealings with the economic stats and then upgrade that, and so that we can boost our economy?
Yeah.
And
well,
start growing again?
Get this debt under control. I think that's a really good question, actually. So basically, the question is, how do you reduce government's interference in the economy, particularly in the way markets function, right? Exactly. I think the bond markets are starting to wake up to, we've got pretty dysfunctional politics right now. We've got a debt, if I had a chart, I'd show you the debt path. And they don't see our politics getting this debt under control. So the Treasury, 10-year Treasury hit 4.75 this week. That's really bad. That's unprecedented. The Fed is almost losing control of interest rates. The bond markets are taking over in a way. I can give you a long answer to this, but the real answer, in my opinion, is if you get government out of its deep involvement in the economy more, you can reduce this problem. So regulations. You want to have regulations that allow innovation to occur, that allow companies to have certainty, that allow companies to plan and invest and grow. And if arbitrary regulations come down and prevent that from happening, then you're going to see one thing government does can ripple through an entire economy and destroy value. With the debt, that's the biggest concern I have, which is our debt now is as large as our economy. And it's only the second time in history that's ever been that way before. The last time was World War II. That was a one-time thing, and it went back down. Here's the problem with our debt in a nutshell. Our debt now is as large as our economy, and it never is going to come back down. It's going to go to 2 and 3 times the size of our economy because of the thing I mentioned before. In a nutshell, I don't want to give you too long of an answer, but here's the basic essence of our debt problem. Many of the programs that our federal government uses are programs that people pay their taxes into during their working lives, and then they receive their benefits when they retire. Think Medicare and Social Security. And the challenge is that these programs were built in the 20th century in a pay-as-you-go basis. Current workers pay their current FICA taxes for current seniors. And if the ratio of workers to seniors stays the same, it kind of works out. But it's not. When we started Social Security, we had 30 workers paying their FICA tax for 1 retiree. When we started Medicare, we had 16 workers paying their FICA tax for 1 retiree. With the boomers going into full retirement, we go down to 2 workers paying a much higher FICA tax for 1 retiree. So put it in another way, in one generation, we're going from 40 million seniors to 77 million seniors. And we have less people following them into the workforce. So we're doubling the amount of retirees in this country in one generation, and the programs that they rely upon, that they were promised, that they're entitled to, they grow between 6 to 8% per year. You compound that out, and therein lies your debt crisis. So the question is, can we pass laws, which I mentioned I think we can, to get this debt under control? We're going to borrow a whole bunch of money for this boomer generation, but can we get it under control in a way that's sustainable so that our debt path doesn't continue to skyrocket up, that it eventually comes back down? Now, the good news is we can do that. Actually, I passed 4 budgets in the House when I was in Congress that do this. So we actually know what to do to get this under control, and we can still keep our promises to our seniors and fulfill the mission of these programs. But it does require changing the way these programs work. And that is really tough, ugly politics. Problem is, neither Biden or Trump want to do this. So neither of the 2 leading contenders for presidency are willing to tackle this challenge. I think that's really unfortunate. And so that is why the bond markets are freaking out. The bond markets don't see any end to this. The bond markets see both candidates for president promising not to tackle the debt going out of control, and unserious politics right now, so they don't see like a chance of getting this out of control. So that is why what government does on a day-to-day basis, these stories of dysfunction, rattles the markets because they don't see us, the keeper of the world's reserve currency, getting our act together. So again, it's all within our control. Get government out of day-to-day meddling in the economy and regulations. Have good tax policy, but get our debt under control. Honestly, that's the only way you solve the problem you've just identified. And it is the more we go down this path, the more you're going to have the market going all over the place, because a little hiccup in government sends shockwaves through our economy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Speaker Ryan, first and foremost, I have to say it's incredible to have you here. I mean, being a first-generational student myself,
Cool.
I've gotten,
What's your name? Where are you from?
Matthew Drachman. I'm from here in Riverton, Utah. Although I may sound like I'm from the South, my mom was from Oklahoma, so I didn't get out of the house much, and I just picked up the draw.
That's awesome.
But honestly, it's cool being a first-generation student to be able to speak to politicians or former politicians.
A recovering politician.
Recovering politician,
yeah,
right? It's just incredible to have you here, and so thank you for visiting our part of the country.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I want to talk to you a little bit about. Oh, God bless you. I want to talk to you a little bit about polarization. I've campaigned door knocked before, and oftentimes one of the things we did for a local campaign was we'd go to a house and someone would answer the door and say, hey, are you a Republican or a Democrat? And depending on your answer, the door gets shoved in your face. So the question I have for you is this. It seems oftentimes now that our politics is becoming more violence. People are seeing each other as the enemy.
Yeah.
And so what is it that the people can do to help alleviate divisions among politicians? And what are things that politicians can do to alleviate the divisions among the people? Supply and demand.
You need to demand that your politicians supply you with solutions and policies and not just rhetoric. Don't elect more Matt Gaetzes, you know. I mean, you've got good, I'm sad Chris Stewart just retired. He was whose district are we in? Is that? John's a great guy. John's a problem solver. John's a guy who went to Congress. He was the mayor of Provo? Yeah. So, you know, I'm just picking John Curtis. That's a guy who's there to solve problems. And you sent him there. Send more John Curtises. Don't send us Matt Gaetzes. You know? And so, but frankly, what I think is unique about you, so I'll speak in a way that you as an Oklahoman sort of can, all y'all. So, all y'all, my wife's from Oklahoma, so I get a little bit of this in my household too. She's from Madill, Oklahoma. It's 8 miles from the Texas border. So deep south Oklahoma. And our dogs, so I'm a bird hunter, we have bird dogs, and just to show you who makes the decisions in our family, I want to name them Bucky and Badger. I'm a big Wisconsin Badger fan. They're named Boomer and Sooner. So, just tell you how the decisions get made in my house. So, but how many of you have been on a mission? How many of you are going to go on a mission? So you're so unique. This is a really cool, I'm a Catholic, so I don't, I'm not LDS, but this is really cool. Because those of you, and I have lots of friends who've done on missions, there is not a better person equipped in society than a member of the LDS church who's going on missions who knows how to experience people who do not think or look or act like them. I mean, you know how to experience rejection at the door, right? That experience you have, that life skill you've developed for yourself of going outside your comfort zone and meeting people who are different and relating to them and bonding with them, you got to teach everybody else how to do that. You know, because you're putting the phone down and you're going out in society and you're integrating and you're communicating and you're relating and you're building connectivity. I think that's one of the coolest things you all do. And there is not enough of that in society. Because a lot of people in your generation this is part of just how politics is working. They are self-selecting and moving into places and cul-de-sacs where everybody thinks and looks and acts like them. You know, people say, if you just fix redistricting, you'll make Congress better. And that answer may have been true 10 or 20 years ago. It's really not anymore because people in this country have redistricted themselves. They move into hotbeds of liberalism or hotbeds of conservatism, and they just echo back and forth to each other, just like we do online. So I really sincerely believe each of you are uniquely qualified because of your skill set, your background, your training, your faith, to help our country rejoin with each other. That to me is it right there. We call it civil society or subsidiarity, which is a principle we embrace in the Catholic Church, which is another way of saying fix things in your community, get involved in your community, build your community. Your church, your civic organizations, this stuff that gets us working together as people without any electronic devices between us. That to me is everything. And then make sure you send us more John Curtises and don't send us more Matt Gaetzes. Yeah.
Hi, so my name is Steven Sylvester. I'm from Salt Lake, but I'm originally from California. So I'm a faculty member here. I teach political science. And so you've consistently been talking about how we need to elect just better people. We don't need to elect the Matt Gaetzes, or basically there's entertainer politics on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
And so you just mentioned gerrymandering and redistricting. I agree with you. I don't really think that we can actually solve that problem. But one of the problems that I've been noticing is primary elections.
Yeah.
Where one of the reasons why we don't have compromise is because all they're really worried about is their primary election. So it encourages people to be divisive. It encourages people to be to not compromise. How do we solve that problem?
Yeah.
How do we move to a system? Because I feel like we're the ones to blame for who we send to Congress. And so I've been struggling to how we solve the primary problem and that problem.
This came on us, you know, it's important to have spirited philosophical debates. I mean, I debate with liberals all the time passionately, but I don't hate them. I just disagree with them. You know, so it's important. I want to make that distinction. This came on to us lately as party leaders, where before, just literally a few cycles ago, we wouldn't get involved in primaries. We'd just get involved in the general election as a party and help whoever came out of the general election. And more these days, everybody, I'm speaking on behalf of Democrats and Republicans. If you're a member of Congress or a senator, you start with your base. If you're a Democrat, you start with your liberal progressive base. If you're a Republican, you start with your conservative base. And in some districts, that's all you need to get elected. But in every district, you need that to begin with to build your vote coalition. I came in a Democrat district, and then for 10 years, it was the centermost district in all of America, the 218th seat. There's a rating on all of this stuff. And then when I left, it was a lean Republican district. It made me so much better. It made me a better congressman, a better leader, because I had to talk to Democrats and independents just to get elected. So I wish everybody had a district like that, frankly, because they'd be better, but they don't, because of the thing we said earlier. So I think what that means is when you start with your base and you're winning a primary, there are certain voters who are die-hard voters who are really involved in politics who always vote in primaries. And then there are casual voters, casual Republicans, casual Democrats that just show up in the general elections. So the secret to all of this is getting these casual voters to engage in the primary. So there's a lot you can do in communities to get people. There's a big effort right now to get more Republicans who are general election voters in the primary voters to vote for somebody not named Donald Trump. I'm in favor of a presidential candidate that's not indicted. Any one of them, you know. But my point is, he does extremely well with that primary voter that always turns out in the primaries. So you got to get more people to turn out in the primaries. And as leaders, we got to get involved in primaries. We just have to. You have to get involved and go and find people in these districts or in these states that are problem solvers that are going to come and be a part of the solution, not be a part of the problem. And so parties need to get involved in primaries more. That's hard to do. But voters got to get engaged in the primary process and not be a casual general election voter, but be a dedicated primary election voter. And there are a lot of techniques you can do that. Yeah.
Over on this side. My name's Caleb. I'm still from Utah. A couple weeks ago, your old running mate, Mitt Romney, made a real push for the younger generation to get a hold of our politics, to stand up, and to really have our own say. At least for me personally, as you have been speaking with the polarization, with the entertainment industry, and with the monetization of reporting, I find it really hard to know who to trust and what to believe. As well, politics just drives me nuts. What would you, first of all, say on what Mitt Romney has said, but also what advice would you give to the younger generation on how we can know what to trust and how to take our politics into our own hands?
Yeah, well, Mitt's a dear friend. I love Mitt. And I talked to him before he made the announcement, and he said, I think I'm just going to say people in their 80s shouldn't be here. That's you say that in the Senate, you're knocking like half the place. You know what I mean? So, and I think Mitt's right, actually. But I think it's kind of what we were saying before. You've got to find sources of information that you trust. And look, I don't know how many. I don't want to do hands conservative versus liberal, but you know what I read in the morning? I read the Wall Street Journal and the Dispatch. You probably don't know what the Dispatch is, but it's conservative, but it's so focused on truth and accuracy. It's Jonah Goldberg and Steve Hayes. These are people who are saying the conservative media is just feeding this red meat to people and just polarizing and pushing conspiracies and the rest. So you got to go out there and find what you believe are valid, truthful reporting and truthful information. So I've done, in my own search, that's where I get mine. So you got to figure out where that is. And then the other thing I'd say is, don't have a conservative tell you what liberalism is, and don't have a liberal tell you what liberalism is. And these are modern words. I'm actually a classical liberal. That's the kind of conservative I am. But hear from a different perspective, from somebody who actually is an advocate of that perspective, to get a reading on it, not the rose-colored glasses, then make your own decision. And so I think it's those two things. You got to find those sources of information that you can really have faith that are accurate, and then you've got to actually listen to other perspectives to build your own frame of reference. And I think what Mitt is trying to do is encourage your generation to do this. You're the first digital generation. Did I just push like 6 people out? Sorry, I didn't. You're the first generation that has this challenge, because you all grew up with these devices. You all grew up in this algorithmic world. So you're going to basically have to help us figure out how to get out of it.
Let's thank him for coming, please.
Oh, all right. Yeah. You bet. Yeah, thank you. Pleasure. Let me stay up here. All right.
First of all, we thank you for coming, Mr. Ryan, and we're grateful to have you here. Mr. Speaker, may I invite Governor Herbert and his wife up as we present a gift for you?
Thank you.
You need to have this checked for
Okay.
bombs or anything?
Hunter green and Kelly green. Are those your two colors? How do you see?
I don't know. Notice he's wearing a UVU green tie. Have you noticed
Absolutely.
that? He put that on for us. On behalf of the administration and campus of Utah Valley University, let's thank him again for coming.
Thank you. This is great. Thanks so much. Let's look at the camera. All right. Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
What a great day this has been. Thank you for coming. Those of you who have been invited to the lunch, we invite you to either take the elevator if you need it or stairs if you want some exercise before you eat, up to the 4th floor of this building. And Speaker, we've got to get your picture out front in front of the Scott Keller building, don't we? So you can send it to Scott and Karen. Thank you all for coming. We invite you to stay tuned for future Hoagies with Herbert days that start on Monday. And thank you all for coming.